Hello and welcome from the depths. My name is Nkarma and you join me in the vehicle designer. Now, as you probably guessed from the title, is that we're going to be taking a look at particle accelerators. I call it particle accelerators. It's called particle cannons here, but whatever. Now, first note, we can find particle accelerators here under lasers, right here. There's particle cannon, particle tube corner, and particle tube terminator. Now, I should note, say ahead now, that this is quite a bit of a first look, just a quick look at things, because the way these things look now, especially if you look at the cost for each of these things, is they're a bit in beta state. Might not exactly be finished, and they might go under several changes. So I think before you start using them in a craft or design, just wait a little. Now, on to here. You notice here I'm on a little ship. This is quite basic. I've got a little turret here. If I drop down here, I should be able to get to where the control is. Control it. Go here, you know, it's a small turret. Spin around, spin around, spin around, spin around. And also in the ship, if you notice, I've got some batteries. 114,000 energy, and also the engine that can produce quite a lot of power itself as well. Now, to start, we're going to go build ourselves a particle cannon. Go to this turret. Now, first things first, the main part, the particle cannon. Once you've placed this down, I won't bother looking at the resource requirement and RP requirements and weight and armor and such, because, like I said, looks like this is a beta feature. Now, when we first put this thing down, we can notice here, it's like, oh my god, this thing looks amazing. But we have some problems. Now, first thing you'll notice, if I come here and try to fire this, nothing happens. Obviously, this is just the main part of the particle cannon. Kind of like lasers, we need to add particle tubes to give us a particle weapon. Now, how this works is we first need to we can simply start this firing by simply putting on a particle tube terminator on one of these ends, like for example the back end here. We've got one port on the back, one port here on the top, one port here on the side, one port here on the bottom, one port on the left. Now, for all those who are very perfectionist and such, like their symmetry, I'm sorry to say you are going to have to sacrifice some of that a bit to get your look right. Now, if you do it right, you might be able to do something like a four-way symmetry, make it look nice, but for the most part, yeah. Now, you might notice on this little interface it says now pipe 4 has length 1 and is a two-way pipe for U-turn. Now if we come here, we can start firing. Rhythmic little fire. Now, that's not a lot, you know. So, of course, we can now go and get more of these pipe tube terminators and place them on each point. Here, and this will, firstly, obviously, this was going to increase our energy consumption, but it's going to increase our damage. The second effect you might notice, if you look at those laser beams, is that we're now actually firing multiple laser beams. See, the thing about particle accelerators is the more we add these particle tube terminators, the more beams it makes. If I quickly remove these tube terminators again, and you look carefully into the horizon, when that beam arcs and goes crazy at a far distance, you see it only goes like that at one point. If I put these back on, accidentally pressed Alt Tab. I put these back on. You'll notice when I fire again, look carefully into the horizon, you'll notice it splits off into multiple beams after a while. We'll get onto that, what's happening there in a moment. Now, the thing to remember is this weapon is going to be most effective at shorter ranges because of that effect that we just witnessed, where the actual particle beam splits up into multiple directions and goes off haywire. It's not the most effective of weapons. If I just fly out a bit here, I can show you a bit of a better look. Look at that, what's happening. It looks cool, but you need to remember you're trying to hit something with this. I'm going to be a bit ineffective. Now, on the topic of hitting things, I can quickly come here and just quickly stick up some wood here. Now, we select our particle cannon and we fire at this wood. It takes about 3 shots and then we will have gone straight through it. Now, there's a current bug where if you're hitting something, it doesn't go through, but not much of a bug. This is a small one. Now, that doesn't do much damage against wood. That's because we didn't make it quite powerful. We want to make this thing more powerful now. And there's several ways we can do it. Now, there's not many ways we can do it, actually. The only real way... Now, we need to note that we have multiple beams here. And each one of these entry points creates one beam. And to increase the strength of a beam, we need to lengthen the tube here. So I just need to rip off this little pop here, and I can pop one on here, move this one, pop one here, pop one on here, move this one, pop one on here. Now, you see that's already adding more to the tubes. And I can now add a tube on that. I'm going to add 2 tubes on that, 2 tubes here, 2 tubes here, 2 tubes here. And also I'm going to come back to the back connector and put 2 tubes there. Actually 3. Because if we read now, if I put just 2 tubes, note these things say pipe 3, pipe 2, pipe 1 has a length of 3. That's because this little corner piece counts as an extra bit of pipe. Now I've got myself 3 pieces there. Now I'm going to have to put in particle tube terminators to make this all work. Put one here, put one here, put one here, put one here. Alright, now I've got a bit of a much more beefier weapon. Unfortunately, so far we don't get any information on the damage we're getting. I believe later on we will be better informed of that. So if I now go back here and create myself my little wooden target here, 2 little wood beams, and I now start firing on this again. One single shot completely destroys a wooden piece. You might also notice the sound is quite louder. Now, that's a bit terrifying, that kind of fire rate. But do note is it uses quite a lot of energy. And the big thing about particle cannons is it can't take energy. It can't draw energy. It can't draw energy from... God damn it, what was that? It can't draw energy from the engine. It draws energy from battery storage. Now, we can see a lot of... Lately, for a couple of things I was trying to go, I specifically need battery storage to work this thing. So, in a way, That's quite advantage, because if you've got a big enough battery, you don't need a big engine, because you'll just fire away, finish the match, and then be on your merry way. And certainly in this situation now, I've got not a very big engine in the back. I've got quite a big battery storage here, you may notice here. But this little weapon I have here that's cleaving straight through wood is not taking that much power. It's going through fuel quite a bit, but there's not be a big problem, especially if this is quite a small raft. Especially if you have a bigger ship. You could have that has other weapons as well, and this is part of a larger setup. Such a weapon is not too bad. It's quite bulky, not something you can easily put on a turret. It should be noted you do get a bit of azimuth and such aiming, but it's very, very small amounts. It's about, I would say, 15 degrees up and down. So very much, if you want to build one of these things, you're going to have to make it on a very big mount. I personally put this on a two-way mount, because this is pretty much going to be a weapon for shooting at targets in front. I imagine aircraft, very big airships, in fact, are going to make much more use of this, because they will inevitably be easier to point at flying through the air. They can easily point at the target, and then you can leave up the turrets to only fire and to move in on the sides to get yourself a upwards and downwards aiming, much more better aiming and up and down. Now, that's quite enough for that. The question now must be, how much damage does this do against steel, you're probably wondering. Well, as far as I can tell, this little weapon I've got here takes about 2 shots to get through metal. And here's the thing. This thing continues to go through a target after it's destroyed. It basically got armor penetration here. Now, the thing is, if you want to go through steel in one shot, you need to start making it bigger. And the way to make it bigger is, of course, adding more particle tubes. I'll go up to you until I've got 12 tubes. Tubes, and I'm gonna put on my particle tube terminators. Now, very important we put those on. Now, if we come here now, actually fire this weapon again, that takes out a steer beam in one hit. And just to show the penetration ability, I'm going to put on 2 beams here. Now, it certainly didn't destroy the second beam, but it certainly damaged it quite heavy. And this is pretty much an infinite range weapon, so long as it hits. Like, I come back to the accuracy again. We notice we come out here at far, it starts splitting off. Even though those things are going haywire and crazy, they are still capable of doing a lot of damage, especially with a larger setup here. Now, of course, we can sort of shrink the thing we have here already, and we can come here and put in particle tube terminators. Instead of extending them straight out, we can sort of make a back loop. But of course, that I want to bring on now. I can bring down your size and make the thing more compact. But the thing is, the more larger you make this thing, the more pieces you add, the stronger you make your particle cannon, we start heading to a very, very big glaring weakness more of a problem than, say, for example, the horrible accuracy at long range, and I mean really horrible. If I now, you notice here I've got my little particle beam here, and I'm going to stick on here some extra tubes, but in this case I am not putting on one of these little particle tube terminators. Watch what happens now if I actually fire this weapon. Oh shit, that's right. The beam is coming out of that tube. Now, at first thought you might think, oh, that's useful, I can get more beam. But here's the thing, the moment that this beam tube is open, it's no longer feeding its beam to the particle cannon, and so it's no longer properly aiming at a target. Sure, if you've got a fighter and you've got it aimed right at the target all the time, you might be tempted to think that this is a better idea. But as far as I can guess, this is a big no. The second thing that should be noted is that if we have these open pipes, if I remove these now, notice now we've got this whole pipe length here, and note you actually get a message that says pipe 1 has a length of 12 and is defective and dangerous pipe. If I actually go and fire this, now it's firing backwards. So the moment any sort of part of this particle cannon gets destroyed, it's going to become a hazard not only for itself, but your entire ship. And as you might have seen before when we were test firing, it can actually rip through steel in a single hit. And the fire rate combined, the point where you realize that your own particle cannon has been damaged and is ripping your own ship apart, might just be too late, and it has already shredded some important pieces, maybe even hit ammo racks or an engine or battery storage that it wasn't supposed to. And that is, for me, quite a bit of a deal breaker, because at some other point your ship is going to get hit. Now, of course, the only way to stop that this happens is whenever you have finished your tube, and you like how it is, you need to put a particle tube terminator. This will allow you to actually function without any sort of problem. Now, you might notice there immediately that my beam is now going through two things. Do note that's because one of my tubes is now stronger. But what in reality is happening is that several of the beams are hitting and being expended, and then the next beams start coming through and hitting and expending. Because this is multiple beams being fed through different tubes, we have different firepowers and such. Especially now here, where one tube is longer than the other ones. When this thing starts scattering at long range, you're going to have quite a lot of problems with doing effective damage. Of course, if your target is very big, this isn't really a big problem. And that brings me sort of the thought about these things. Is really, what we have here is a weapon that's designed to take out larger targets. Larger targets where it is guaranteed to hit the target. And even though the individual beams are off target, they'll do damage and they'll cut through. And with a big enough, powerful enough beam, they'll damage and do some severe damage. Now, but of course, such a big beam requires energy. So, as I've shown now, our engine, though it's feeding half of its power to my batteries, our batteries are slowly being drained, and well, it's not that much. For this kind of power to destroy one metal beam per shot is quite sufficient of a sacrifice. But now, we need to note, well, for a moment, let's just like bring in a little deep water guard ship, just so we have something to have fun with. I am gonna bring, no, definitely not a Pelican. I don't know. I'm gonna summon the Vanguard retrofit. Now we got our random Velvet there. Watch there immediately that first thing that happened there. It's doing nothing to him. Barely doing any sort of damage. And all the while he's flaming against us, and we're now basically... It's starting to cleave right through him. And whoa, we got lucky there. One of the beams that went haywire actually hit its turret. Honestly, this system really isn't that effective against that ship, especially the fact that it's quite a small one. Now, especially if you look at the range that we are at, it's not very far. This is going to be a sort of a weapon that you might think, oh, it's something I want to bring from close range. But again, this comes back to fragility. If one of these tubes break, not only are you going to lose a lot of firepower, but you're also going to have a big hazardous beam shooting backwards into your ship. Now you might be wondering, next thought you might have, right, that's it for how much power it uses, and that's a good example. That's a nice decent one you could probably use against the Deepwater God. This little gun right here, it's not very big. I can fit this on a reasonable ship. The engine I need for it isn't that large of an engine or very complicated. See here, I've just used, if you want the information for this engine, you can see there's 3 cylinders around the crankshaft, injectors, putting fuel in for these, and then carburetors with superchargers just to give us a bit more fuel efficiency, and some radiators to keep it cool, and exhausts. I don't really have the time right now, but I've not really hooked these up fancily. And of course, several large battery packs so that I have a lot of power and storage. I've got a quite nifty weapon. Pretty decent. And the total cost of this is about, as you can see here on the top, is 19,000 wood, 40,000 metal, 2,000 oil, 7,000 scrap, 1,900 crystal. But then again, we need to remember that this is, so far, prototype. This is new. This very well may not remain in the game. It might even be, as it is, it might even be removed, it might be nerfed, it might be buffed. So I think anyone that wants to try experiment, you need to go and experiment this, and then immediately jump to the From the Depths forum and tell Nick and everyone there what you think about this, what kind of bugs you noticed, what kind of malfunctions, or do you think this is overpowered or not? And on the topic of overpowered, I guess we need to go to the next point where we ask, how overpowered can we make this? Because this is From the Depths. If we remember our crown cannons, 2 meter long wide shells, because fuck you. Now, tell us what exactly is the most powerful thing you can get to this? Well, the most powerful I can get this weapon, well, as powerful as I've tried so far, is I've gotten up to it where it would, in a single shot, cleave through about 28 metal beams. No, I'm not shitting you. It can go through that kind of amount. But of course, what we need for that is quite ridiculous. I come here, jump to the side. I'm gonna load a vehicle in my little folder. I'm gonna come here to particle cannon test. Yes, here we go. This monstrosity you see right here now, you might immediately notice the immense size of the engines I've put on this thing. Though there's one thing I need to do quickly. is battery charge. So this thing can charge faster. Get this thing to push in all of its power straight into the batteries. More that per. And this thing is taking long. Now, for the moment, let's remove these particle cannons because they were just some tests. Now, right here on the side is the bee's knees. Biggest particle cannon I've made so far. You can notice here that its tubes are, at one point, was making a nice, neat little compact construction here. But after a while, I've given up and made long, just make it straight, just so I could test the thing. Now, this construction, you should notice there in the bottom, is sucking up fuel like crazy. I don't have much fuel storage here, but 36,000 is still a lot of fuel. And over 1 million of energy storage. And my actual engines are quite beefy amount of engines. Now, if a bit basic. Now, you may be wondering, okay, fantastic. That's the requirement. How much does it go through? Well, look here. First thing I need to say is every one of these pipes on it is 200. In fact, I've got 1 kilometer of piping. And if I come here quickly, stand up a nice little spot under it. That is a lot of fire, and we are gutting off, hemorrhaging fuel every time we fire it. I'm just gonna quickly come here and add some more fuel. There's some more fuel for us, but it's not really a lot. And now, the question is, holy shit, that's a lot to fire the weapon. Yes, exactly, it is a lot. And I can only imagine if you want this kind of firepower that this thing has, you're going to have to make a ship dedicated to only this particle cannon. Especially if you want to make a turret out of this. It's gonna take a lot because we can still fire off that direction, and fire that direction, and that direction, and that direction with this sort of hull-mounted one. But if we want a one that actually hits, that can turn, it's gonna take a lot. It's gonna be hideous to try and get this thing to get out the maximum of it without having to resort to some ridiculous designs. Now, of course, the question comes, final question. After all this, now what really can I do with 200 on each pipe? Well, I'm going to come to Onyx Watch. I'm going to go ships. I'm going to find that big old bulwark. I'm going to summon this in. I'm just quickly going to go turn off its AI. Turning off. Because I don't particularly want it to shoot at me immediately. Oh shit, my other ship is shooting the shit out of me. Whoopsie! I actually went through a lot of wood, that other laser. Now, let me just angle this thing a bit. Totally be ruining that ship. Now, let's get a closer look there. Oh yes, yeah. You can see it's not really hitting the target very effectively. But it's definitely giving us some impressive results. Some of the beams aren't even hitting it at all, but they're definitely going right through it. Oh, nah. Oh, that's... Oh, 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 ooh. Yeah, that's going right through it. Yeah. You know, it only like hits 1 or 2 blocks sometimes in some of these days, but it's going right through, and especially the large size of the ship, it quite effectively goes right through the ship. Yeah. That's the kind of devastating firepower we have on our hands. But the question is it really worth it? Because if I quickly come here and I accidentally put the bulwark online again. Oh. That's already silenced the gun. I think that's enough of an example.
Turning off.
Yeah. That bulwark really has a lot of firepower. Well, and admittingly, I've made this thing out of wood. But needless to say... Oh, shit. And this is a good example of what's happening behind here. Most of the parts of my weapon here has actually been knocked off. And completely destroyed. If you remember correctly, there was an engine behind here. Those shells didn't hit that engine. But the laser certainly have been having a lot of fun destroying the back of my ship. And now in this case where we have actually no actual end caps, you'll notice that there's no beam being produced. This is not a very effective weapon. This is not a very worthwhile weapon. Though, once you get hang of, if you can build a proper ship for it, proper protection, lots of shields, then go ahead for it. But you're going to basically be building a ship designated entirely around this thing. You're not going to be able to just build this as an added weapon to one of your existing ships. It's not really going to fit in at all. But the results speak for themselves. That's a big ship, and it's gone right through it quite easily. Though admittedly, you'd probably want something else firing as well, because like I said, this thing is got a good fire rate, but it only destroys, is going to be destroying things only in a single line. In like 5 lines. That's the most you're going to be destroyed per shot. It'll still take a while to destroy something quite big. You'll probably want an extra ship on a line with large cram cannons to sort of clean up the target after it's been gravely wounded with the particle cannon. Now, I'm not really going to place this on from this forum. After all, you can, in your own time, go build your own thing here. Specifically, I don't want to put this on because it's not something really neatly built, after all. But I hope this has been informative, descriptive of what exactly entails for the particle cannons. And this information might help you in preparation for the future. Last note, probably should be said, and this is regards to lasers in general, I think, is that similar like lasers, it goes through shields. Well, as far as I can see. I haven't played around with lasers in a long time, so I might be mistaken that lasers can no longer go through shields, but last I checked, they can't go through shields. So, you're definitely going to be in a situation where this is going to be ideal choice for taking out something that has a lot of shields and a lot of armor. But that accuracy is just the thing that kills this weapon for me. And the fact that even one hit is going to can very easily gravely cripple your design. You want a good weapon that does a lot of damage? Swarms of missiles, whole bunch batteries of cram cannons, fast firing advanced cannons. You know, those things. Those can is more the thing that you start looking at. If you've got a few kicks to the head and you want something that has a lot of, that's, well, the kind of thing an evil doctor would use properly, yes, then particle cannons is for you. Me personally, I might make a few smaller particle cannons, namely because even the smaller ones can do quite a bit of damage, take out one block easily, a metal beam very easily, such as I've got on my little ship here. Something a lot more smaller, yeah, I'll probably use that. Quite a couple, maybe like a battery of these on a larger ship. But honestly, maxing out a particle cannon, no. That's, although who knows, maybe they change it a bit. Maybe they nerf it and you have to max it out, maybe add some more features and such. I personally think if I would have to chat about this, I'd say the thing that I would like to see added here is maybe sort of a safety tube, one that would allow for you to keep on having your tube, but if anywhere along down the line it breaks, it sort of cuts off that section of tube to prevent damage. But the downside is it would reduce the efficiency of everything that comes after it. That's something I would put in. Maybe a different version of the particle tube that gives more kick, but is very fragile, even more fragile. It doesn't just break off and leave an open tube. It actually explodes, does heavy damage, can cause a chain reaction the moment it's hit. Maybe for the particle cannon itself, kinds of lenses for it. One that increases your aiming directions but reduces accuracy. Maybe one that increases accuracy but reduces aiming angles. You know, those kind of things. And maybe even a different kind of tube terminator that increases energy with increased energy efficiency, but with a tendency to fail and break off. Those kind of things. All kinds of things that can be applied here additionally. It's just waiting for it to implement. But personally, I think maybe not to add too much to this particle cannon, because we could kind of leave this particle cannon as it is now, just sort of to put in proper resource costs, and have it be the sort of big one-trick pony weapon. Because if you look at other weapons, lasers, we can do various things with lasers and have different strength lasers, pulsing lasers, beam lasers, and so forth. And advanced cannons, we can have a massive amount of customization. Missiles is definitely a thing that has multiple uses: torpedoes, bombs, etc. Cram cannons, and recently cram cannons have even been given the ability to deploy a bomb chute, which basically makes them bomb droppers. Fantastic. A lot of these things have got a lot of uses, but I think the particle cannon should be the one-trick pony weapon in From the Depths. Very powerful, very strong, glass cannon of the ages. Nothing really complicated I need to put there. The only thing that's going to get complicated is actually getting a very good build for it, getting a very good ship for it, and of course dealing with the fact that the moment it gets hit, it's going to start backfiring really bad for you. My name is Vincent Karma. Hope you have a nice, safe journey. Try not to do anything dangerous with your with your little particle cannons experimenting. And do remember, these things may very well get nerfed or changed or even removed. Don't get your hopes up. I just have one last word I wanted to add on quickly before I go on to edit this video and upload it. It's, I noticed something that probably should have noticed while I was experimenting. As you can come to this thing and press Q. Yes, indeed, we get a whole lot of information, putting the gun menus there and also actually affecting some things. You can do some interesting things here. It gives you some extra information whenever you move your mouse cursor over any of these. Do note that these will affect your time, but mostly of what's going, you're going to be able to increase your fire rates and such, but it's gonna make things a bit well, terrible. Because as you right now, that shot I put off actually completely drains my energy. Now normally this thing is left about but lower scale point here. You can leave it lower to use less energy. You get effectively a machine gun particle cannon. I personally don't think it's another thing that needs to be customized. But yeah, just a little afterword. This is implemented. Wow. Really? Really? I can't believe I missed this. There's other settings for this as well. EMP, impact. Really? I feel stupid. Well, there you have it. This thing can actually get a bit more customization. I thought this was not possible. Hooray for back checking. Before I embarrass myself. Now, alright. But I'm gonna think I'll leave that to you people. I will get to experimenting what these actually do in a different video. Honestly. What we have here is, like I said before, a first look. There's a lot more to this. Helps if you sort of kick the dirt away and check what's actually beneath the things. Now, have a nice day.